Police misconduct has been a hot-button issue throughout the country, and for a good reason. Police officers are supposed to protect and serve citizens, but they have done the opposite in many cases. The numbers are staggering. People killed by police make up 1% of all homicides but 25% of all unarmed killings. In 2015 alone, there were over 1,000 unjustified killings by police officers, according to FBI data. We will take you through some high-profile settlements that cities and states have paid out due to police misconduct, from New York City, $20 million, to California, $189 million. Welcome to the Political Watchman. If you had to guess, how much do you think your city or state is spending on police misconduct settlements? Please take a moment to think about it. What are some of the underfunded things you think you would better utilize this money in? Hold that thought. Let's look at the numbers. Sitka, Alaska. Former Sitka officer Mary Ferguson filed a complaint with the department in 2018 alleging that she experienced sexual harassment and discrimination based on her gender. They settled the matter out of court for $515,000. Ferguson was the only female officer for the Sitka Police Department during her tenure. She recently won a discrimination complaint against them and can now take an independent investigation into management practices at the Sitka Police Department using her own resources. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix has paid more than $26 million over the last 10 years, including $5.6 million in 2010 to 2014. The Wall Street Journal has released an analysis of settlement totals from instances of police misconduct among the 10 largest local police departments in the nation since 2015. A new analysis on police misconduct claims found that the city of Phoenix spent $5.6 million and paid out more than $26 million over fiscal years 2008 to 2018 to settle 191 cases which, in some instances, involved beatings, shootings, wrongful imprisonment. Drayvon Ames and Aisha Harper have been awarded an undisclosed amount of money after officers pointed guns at them following their 4-year-old daughter's accusation of shoplifting in Phoenix, Arizona. In their claim against the city of Phoenix, Ames and Harper demanded $10 million. The viral incident resulting in this settlement led the Phoenix Police Department to fire an officer and implement a policy to file a report each time a gun is pointed at someone. The city of Phoenix paid $3 million to settle a lawsuit by the family of Ryan Whitaker following a deadly shooting. In May 2020, 20-year-old Ryan Whitaker was shot and killed by Phoenix police officers while they responded to a domestic dispute. Whitaker had a gun in his hand when he opened the door. The officer who shot and killed Anthony Scott Whitaker thought he was about to shoot them and fired back, although it is not clear from the body-worn camera footage if he raised his gun at all. Tempe, Arizona. The city of Tempe settled a lawsuit with Travanie Kumpian for $300,000 arising from an aggressive police encounter. Kumpian, a black hotel worker, was unfairly threatened and held at gunpoint by Officer Ronald Kurzaya for several minutes. Officer Kurzaya responded to a call about an armed suspect at the hotel where Kumpian worked and arrested Kumpian after mistaking him for the unarmed suspect. The hotel manager told Kurzaya that the suspect was white. Kurzaya held Kumpian at gunpoint for several minutes until the hotel manager could confirm that Kumpian wasn't the suspect. Tucson, Arizona. In January 2019, the city paid $300,000 to settle an issue with police misconduct. In January 2019, a family received $300,000 after filing suit against the city of Tucson and several officers from the Tucson Police Department. The lawsuit said police officers stopped the Wyatt family and forced them to lie on the ground after they approached a traffic stop. Los Angeles, California. Between 2005 and 2018, the city of Los Angeles paid more than $190 million for police misconduct settlements. The majority of these payments were between 2010 and 2014 at the cost of over $57 million, with nearly all costs being related to civil rights violations by LAPD officers. In 2015, the Wall Street Journal obtained and analyzed settlement totals from minority police misconduct instances among the nation's 10 largest local police departments. The city of Los Angeles spent $57.1 million in 2010 to 2014 on police misconduct cases. The Los Angeles Times found that the city paid more than $190 million in settlements for police misconduct from July 2005 to 2018. The Los Angeles Police Department paid $700,000 in a settlement for demoting former Lieutenant Raymond Garvin after he reported on misconduct. Garvin, the department's bomb detection canine section leader, reported an incident from LAX. He believed that a handler purposefully sabotaged another one by confusing their dog during a federal bomb-sniffing certification test. Garvin also cited inappropriate professional relationships that exist in the department. Garvin was reported to have created a hostile work environment and had racially charged remarks. They found the claims against Garvin to be baseless, but he remained demoted and not reinstated into his original position. Placer County, California. Samuel Kolb experienced a mental health crisis and was shot by Deputy Curtis Honeycutt. He is now paralyzed from the waist down after one of his vertebrae were shattered. The victim agreed to settle for $10 million with the county. The caller, Kolb's son and not the subject himself, didn't claim that his father presented any clear danger to authorities. He stated it was a routine occurrence due to mental health issues. Deputy Honeycutt claimed he shot Kolb because he feared for his life when Kolb stabbed him, but witnesses testified that they never saw the stabbing and Honeycutt's vest showed no signs of being punctured. Pittsburgh, California. In 2020, the family of Humberto Martinez was awarded $7.3 million for his death when he was held in a carotid hold by Pittsburgh Police Department for 50 seconds that resulted in his fatality. Pittsburgh police officer Daniel Kuhn stopped Mr. Martinez for running a stop sign and was eventually restrained inside the stranger's home. This is one case where the use of a carotid hold resulted in death, as noted by city authorities who have since banned this maneuver. San Diego, California. The San Diego Police Department has spent the last decade making $25 million worth of payments related to lawsuits in a span of 8 years. Local news channel NBC7 reviewed all lawsuits involving the San Diego Police Department between 2008 and 2016. As of now, taxpayers pay more than $25 million to settle these lawsuits. Policing organizations pay out the most money to settle cases of misconduct when an individual that has been detained flees or dies in custody. These payments ranged from $1.1 million in 2008, nearly $5 million in 2013, and finally $9.5 million for a single incident in 2015, according to NBC7. San Francisco, California. In March 2019, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors approved a $13.1 million settlement to resolve an issue with police misconduct. In March 2019, the San Francisco Board of Supervisors unanimously approved a police misconduct settlement of $13.1 million to Jamal Trulovi, who was falsely convicted and sentenced to 50 years to life in prison for murder 2010. After spending 6 years in prison, an Oakland jury acquitted Mr. Trulovi, who a 2015 retrial determined to have been falsely accused by 2 officers, who had since retired. San Jose, California. The city of San Jose paid $125,000 to 5 men who were wrongfully arrested under California's lewd conduct law in 2018. The city of San Jose, California, paid a $125,000 settlement to 5 men in 2018 who were falsely arrested for lewd conduct and subsequently found innocent. This incident was caused by unnecessary discrimination towards the gay community. San Luis Obispo, California. Nick Regalia and Riley Manford received $70,000 in compensation from the city of San Luis Obispo after officers shot their dog during a search last year. An officer of the San Luis Obispo Police Department shot and killed Regalia's dog, a 14-year-old black Labrador Retriever mix, in January 2018. The officer claimed that the dog was charging him, but Manford and her neighbor dispute this account. SLO has since implemented training on how to handle encounters with dogs. Santa Monica, California. The Santa Monica City Council voted to give $42.6 million to 23 families sexually abused by a police department employee and member of the Police Activities League. Eric Uller was accused of molesting several children he picked up from predominantly Latino areas of the city, beginning in the 1980s. His job in the police department gave him access to children, which made many reports of his behavior. Santa Rosa, California. In May 2020, Argelio Gorin was shot in the groin by a rubber bullet during protests against police brutality. Police misconduct settlements reimburse St. Santos resident Pedro Gorin for medical expenses related to emergency care he received because of an alleged police encounter. There are also 6 pending cases against the city of Oakland for alleged police violence against protesters. Vallejo, California. Residents of Vallejo, California, will have to pay $5.7 million as their city settles a lawsuit in connection with the fatal police shooting of Ronell Foster. Ronell Foster, an unarmed man who was shot and killed by Vallejo police officer Ryan McMahon in 2016, will not face criminal charges. In 2017, Vallejo police officers were caught on video beating Carl Edwards while trying to fix his own fence. In 2020, city officials agreed to pay Edwards $750,000 as part of a settlement agreement. The Vallejo Police Department is currently under investigation by the California Department of Justice after a string of reported incidents revealed that police use excessive force within the department and target someone who is not the suspect. Walnut Creek, California. Walnut Creek city officials announced a $4 million settlement with the family of Miles Hall, who Walnut Creek police officers fatally shot during a mental health episode in 2019. Hall's family called the police because of suicide risk. Hall had schizoaffective disorder. This settlement regards a civil suit, but the officers involved are also suspected of using force. Aurora, Colorado. The Aurora Police Department paid someone $285,000 to settle a lawsuit. This happened after they attacked the person in their garage. They arrested the person and then threw them on the ground. The officers tried to cover up their misconduct after the incident by charging Torres Soto with resisting arrest and failure to follow a lawful order, but he was acquitted of all charges. The police have had problems with using too much force for a long time. This was made worse when a man died in 2019. Boulder, Colorado. Zaid Atkinson is a black university student who was unjustly asked by Boulder police for his ID to prove he lived at his home while taking out the trash in 2020. The city of Boulder took responsibility and agreed to pay a $125,000 settlement. After an altercation with a Boulder Police Department officer, the officers involved resigned due to pressure resulting from the media coverage. Denver, Colorado. From 2004 to 2017, Denver paid over $28 million for police and jail claims. Denver's city attorney gave data for the past 14 years from 2004 to 2017 that say the city paid $28 million total for police claims. In the same time period, 82% of the settlements passed to the Denver City Council for approval were for police and jail-related claims at a total cost of $33.7 million. The Denver City Council approved a settlement total of $500,000 in an excessive force and malicious prosecution lawsuit filed against the Denver Police Department. Fort Collins, Colorado. Kimberly Chancellor sued the Fort Collins police in 2017, alleging excessive force following an incident where she was pinned to the ground by an officer. The city settled the lawsuit for $125,000 and resolved any claims against it related to her arrest in 2020. The officer was not on duty, and when he spotted Chancellor speeding, he chose to follow her. The officer pursued Chancellor for speeding because she had violated his personal policy of respect on the road by speeding. Glastonbury, Connecticut. Former police sergeant Kristen Schubert will receive an undisclosed sum of money to settle a sex discrimination lawsuit against the city. Schubert's complaint alleged that after taking first in a personnel examination and with greater experience than the male lieutenant who was promoted, Glastonbury Police Department discriminatorily gave the position to the male. Washington, D.C. Between 2010 and 2014, the District of Columbia spent $30.5 million on police misconduct cases. In 2015, the Wall Street Journal took a look at the settlement totals for major police departments in America. An analysis of legal settlements involving police misconduct between 2010 and 2014 found that the District of Columbia spent $30.5 million on police brutality cases than any other city in America. The city spent about $31.6 million in 173 cases of police misconduct between 2005 and 2016. Greater Miami Area, Florida. In 2015, the city of Miami paid a settlement worth $1 million for an unjustified police shooting, and in 2019, they paid a settlement of $65,000 for excessive force. In their analysis of fraud settlements, the Wall Street Journal looked at the 10 largest municipal police departments and found discrepancies in each. In the study between 2010 and 2014, Miami-Dade spent $3.1 million on police misconduct cases. Florida has agreed to pay damages worth over $1 million due to a 2011 case of police abuse in Miami, where Detective Reynaldo Goyos shot and killed Travis McNeil. Miami spent $65,000 on another police misconduct settlement in 2019. The suit accused Captain Javier Ortiz of the Miami Police Department, who was lieutenant and head of the union at the time, used excessive force following a traffic stop in 2015. Atlanta, Georgia. In 2010, Atlanta paid $4.9 million to the family of a woman killed during an illegal raid. In 2016 and again in 2018. While under legal scrutiny for misconduct involving their police department, they also paid out nearly $4 million in settlements relating to recent incidents. In 2010, the city of Atlanta paid a $4.9 million settlement to the family of Katherine Johnston, a 92-year-old woman who was killed during an illegal raid of her home. A recent local news source found that the Atlanta Police Department paid $4 million to settle cases involving misconduct from 2015 to 2018. DeKalb County, Georgia. In 2009, DeKalb County, Georgia, agreed to a $165,000 settlement. Police were doing wrong things, and the county said they would stop it. In 2009, DeKalb County, Georgia, paid a homeless man $165,000. The man claimed that a police officer drove him to Rockdale County and told him to get out of the car. A man refused to do something. A policeman was mad, and then he fought with the man. The policeman had been charged with kidnapping, assault, and breaking his oath of office. Dunwoody, Georgia. Yudeta Osman, a Dunwoody resident, alleges that this police intentionally ran him over with their car in 2017. Dunwoody's insurance provider will give Osman $400,000 for their lawsuit. The city and the police did not do anything wrong. Osman was hurt after being hit by a Dunwoody police car. He needed to get surgery and pay $370,000 in medical bills. He drove erratically in a parking lot and was followed by the police. Honolulu, Hawaii. In 2014, Honolulu paid $1.4 million to the family of a man who was killed by police and agreed to pay $550,000 in 2019 because the police chief did something wrong. In 2014, Honolulu paid millions of dollars in settlements to victims of police misconduct. In March 2019, the Honolulu City Council agreed to pay $550,000 to a retired police lieutenant who filed a 2009 lawsuit against the police. Retired Lieutenant Richard Hewlett alleged a top leader in the department had tampered with tests on recruits, but the police could not find any evidence for this claim. Kauai, Hawaii. Kauai Police Department settled proceedings with Officer Mark Begley from Ewa District in Honolulu, Hawaii. He accused retaliation and harassment after he encouraged another employee to report an incident of sexual harassment, which cost the city a $1.8 million settlement transaction. Begley complained about the former Kauai police chief. He said that he was being mistreated and that it had been happening for 9 years. Primarily, the retaliation came in the form of investigations. Begley claims that these were meant to make him leave his job. Chicago, Illinois. The city of Chicago spent $249.7 million between 2010 to 2014 on police misconduct cases. It has spent over $45 million in the first part of 2018 for this type of lawsuits. In 2015, The Wall Street Journal published an analysis of the settlements made from police misconduct among the 10 largest local police departments. It is hard to understand what this sentence is talking about. You could improve this sentence by using shorter sentences. It might also help if the author explained what these cases are. In 2015, the city paid $5 million to the family of Laquan McDonald, who was shot and killed by a Chicago police officer 16 times as he walked away from the officer. One local news source in Chicago, NBC5, found that the city paid around $45 million to resolve police misconduct cases between January and July 2018. Chicago aldermen agreed to settle 4 lawsuits about police misconduct for $6.65 million in September 2020. 2 of the lawsuits involved fatal shootings by police. One man was 18 and the other 27. The Chicago police officers shot them both. Chicago settled with two people who claimed that they were retaliated against for reporting abuse by police officers. They also settled a case about armed police officers who broke into an apartment based on a bad warrant. In 2017, the city reached a $2.25 million settlement in the case of 18-year-old Ricardo Hayes, who was shot by an off-duty Chicago police officer while on his way to work as he left his home. Hayes is developmentally disabled and was unarmed at the time of his shooting. It is not clear why the off-duty police officer attacked him. But the incident was captured on video. The officer involved in the attack has been suspended for 6 months. DNIGMA Howard, a 16-year-old black female special needs student at Marshall High School, will receive $300,000 to settle a lawsuit after excessive police force. Howard was tased and wrestled down a flight of stairs by school resource officers in January 2019. After a suspension, officers at Howard said that she would not leave the school. Howard was also charged with being a bad person. But the state's attorney dropped those charges a week after it happened. A police officer, Lauren Kubiak, was transferred to an undesirable duty after reporting that she had been threatened by one of her coworkers. She will get $3.8 million to settle the lawsuit. The settlement will also make new changes for the Chicago Police Department. Kubiak's case is about the code of silence that officers in police departments across the country are told to follow, not to report any problems. The officer who threatened Kubiak has had 31 internal affairs and 1 federal lawsuit. Kubiak initially filed an administrative complaint, but they denied her request. Naperville, Illinois. Naperville, Illinois government officials approved a $430,000 payment to Francis Wrights. The payment was for a lawsuit. A lawsuit is making people in Naperville think about what happened. The police caught someone and threw them to the ground, even though there was no reason to do that. Wrights will stop the lawsuit against the city. The settlement is not an admission of liability. Indianapolis, Indiana. In 2019, Indianapolis agreed to a settlement worth $2.15 million because of police misconduct. In June 2019, the city of Indianapolis agreed to a settlement worth $2.15 million for Gerald Cole, who was shot twice in the back by Officer James Perry of the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department after Mr. Cole drove his car past a disturbance on May 5, 2017. Waterloo, Iowa. In March of 2015, Yovan Webb attempted to leave a nightclub and was shot by police. After settling out of court for $400,000 in 2020, he is still alive today. Webb, black, got out of his car and retrieved a toy gun after exiting the nightclub. Multiple police officers shot at him because they erroneously thought Webb had used a toy as a weapon while fleeing from an officer on foot. Louisville, Kentucky. The city of Louisville paid $12 million to the Taylor family after police shot and killed Breonna Taylor. The police came into her home with a warrant that they were not supposed to have. They obtained it under dubious circumstances. When Ms. Taylor's boyfriend fired a shot to try and scare away the intruders, police opened fire and shot her 5 times. Louisville officials approve a $12 million settlement for Breonna Taylor. The police shooting settlement is one of the largest. It has many policy ramifications, including stronger transparency obligations and search warrant reform. While the settlement is unrelated to any apology or admission of wrongdoing, it does not prohibit the family from suing in the future. New Orleans, Louisiana. In 2016, New Orleans reached a $13.3 million settlement to resolve a police misconduct lawsuit. In 2016, the city of New Orleans settled worth $13.3 million for 17 plaintiffs injured and families of people killed during violent interactions with police before and after Hurricane Katrina. Baltimore, Maryland. Between 2010 and 2014, Baltimore spent $12 million on police misconduct cases. Between 2015 and 2019, the total amount of money they paid for settlements was $24.5 million. The city of Baltimore spent $12 million on police misconduct cases. This involved allegations of beatings, shootings, and wrongful imprisonment. Baltimore taxpayers pay $24.5 million for police misconduct settlements every year. In November 2020, Baltimore paid a lot of money to settle suits involving the Gun Trace Task Force. There will be $8 million in settlements for 7 police misconduct cases, such as planting narcotics on 2 innocent men by the GTTF. Umar Burley and Brent Matthews were given a large settlement of money after they served time in prison for something that happened when the police followed them. The police were following them because they were doing something illegal, but then an older man died. Two lawsuits that are related to each other were settled for nearly $600,000. Some officers on the GTTF were convicted of federal crimes like robbery. Baltimore Police Department settled claims of sexual harassment and discrimination with Hispanic officer Luis Garcia for $62,000. Officer Garcia filed a lawsuit. He said that the Baltimore Police Department is discriminating against Hispanic men. Officer Garcia's lawsuit is related to another settlement granted to Officer Jasmine Rowlett. The Baltimore Police Department settled claims of race and sex-based discrimination and sexual harassment with Jasmine Rowlett. She is black and a woman. Rowlett and fellow officer Luis Garcia were accused of fraternization by their colleagues. This is considered misconduct, as officers are prohibited from forming personal relationships in the workplace. Additionally, rumors about a relationship between the two began spreading among Rowlett's co-workers. Other allegations include that her supervisor made suggestive comments towards her, which also constitutes harassment. Prince George's County, Maryland. In 2012, a county in Maryland agreed to pay $3.6 million for police misconduct. In 2012, Prince George's County, Maryland, agreed to pay $3.6 million to 10 University of Maryland students who were wrongfully arrested and assaulted after riots in 2010. Police shot a man called William Green while he was handcuffed to a police cruiser. The county approved $20 million for his family in September 2020. The settlement represents one of the largest payments for police misconduct settlements in U.S. history. Second-degree murder charges have been filed against Owen in addition to this payment. Montgomery County, Maryland. In 2017, the county in Maryland had to give $45,000 to a person arrested for something they didn't do. In 2017, Montgomery County, Maryland, reached a $45,000 settlement with photographer Manny Garcia for a wrongful arrest in 2011. Boston, Massachusetts. In 2015, Boston spent more than $36 million on 2,000 legal claims and lawsuits against the Boston Police Department. 9 of these legal claims were worth over $1 million. In 2015, the city of Boston spent more than $36 million to fix 2,000 legal claims filed against the Boston Police Department. 22 payouts were worth over $100,000, including 9 that were over $1 million. Detroit, Michigan. In the last few years, Detroit has paid about $19 million for police misconduct settlements. According to the local news source reporting, 7 Action News, the city of Detroit paid $19.1 million for police misconduct settlements between 2015 and 2018. From 2017 and 2018, 2 large settlement claims totaling $400,000 and $925,000 arose from unlawful shooting allegations. The city of Detroit approved a $75,000 payment to a woman whose dog was shot and killed during the raid. A Detroit resident, Kira Thorne, filed a lawsuit against the city alleging that the police department violated her civil rights when they shot her dog during a narcotics raid without cause. The fourth in a string of lawsuits, Detroit police have shot and killed another citizen's dog. Minneapolis, Minnesota. The city of Minneapolis agreed to pay a nearly $1 million settlement to someone who got hurt when an officer did something that was not allowed. Off-duty police officer, Clinton Tolles, assaulted McDonough at a bar in 2017. When Clinton Tolles identified himself as a police officer to McDonough, he was not on duty. 2 city officials who approved the settlement said that this had not changed anything in Minneapolis and that it might be seen as a cost of doing business. The city of Minneapolis settled a case brought by Jared Burt for $170,000. The settlement was in response to an incident where SWAT police officers threw a flashbang grenade into Burt's car to violate department policy. Overturning the conviction and accusing a police officer of planting evidence, the court found that officers did not announce themselves before encountering Burt and did not file a warrant for his car. Burt had a friend in the vehicle who was wanted on a nonviolent drug charge. Police found nothing illegal in the car, but Burt suffered severe burns when an officer discharged a flashbang grenade as they searched it. Worthington, Minnesota. The city of Worthington settled an excessive force case brought by Kelvin Rodriguez for $590,000. Worthington police officers Mark Riley and Evan Eggers seriously injured Rodriguez during an arrest in January 2019 after Rodriguez had surrendered with his hands in the air and ignored Rodriguez's repeated requests for medical care. When police responded, Rodriguez had to be airlifted to a medical center and spent 5 days in intensive care. Ferguson, Missouri. You have probably come across this one. In 2017, Ferguson paid $1.5 million to the family of Michael Brown. They paid $1.5 million to settle a wrongful death lawsuit filed by the family of Michael Brown, who was killed by Officer Darren Wilson in 2014. St. Louis, Missouri. According to a report from the city's Public Safety Board, the St. Louis Police Department paid $4.7 million for police misconduct settlements between 2010 and 2016. The St. Louis Police Department paid $212,500 in damages to the family of Normaine Bennett following their pursuit and shooting of him in 2012. In 2013, the department agreed to $400,000 for the family of Carrie Ball, who was shot 212 times by police following a pursuit. The city also paid $900,000 to survivors of Anthony Lamar Smith, who was fatally shot by police. A review of police settlement cases between 2010 and early 2016 revealed these were among the largest settlements, totaling $4.7 million, by the department. Atlantic City, New Jersey. Antoine Jones and Brian Wilson allege that they faced racial profiling during a traffic stop. They were repeatedly threatened with violence by an officer of the Atlantic City Police Department. Neither Jones nor Wilson was charged with traffic violations, and the officers involved were both members of law enforcement who had been involved in previous incidents. Carteret, New Jersey. Monty Stewart will receive $595,000 to settle a federal civil rights lawsuit. On July 7 of 2017, Stewart was savagely beaten by Carteret police officer Joseph Ryman during an arrest. John Ryman, the brother of Carteret's mayor, Mayor Dan Ryman and uncle to Carteret Police Chief Bruce Adam Ryman, was acquitted of criminal charges in Superior Court after a trial. The case centers on a tense situation between an officer and victim, which also involved at least one other officer who allegedly failed to intervene, fearing retaliation from Mayor Baird. Officer Ryman has faced multiple complaints of excessive force in the past. Wildwood, New Jersey. The town of Wildwood has agreed to pay $325,000 to settle a federal civil rights lawsuit filed by Emily Weinman. In a video that has been shared millions of times, officers can be seen confronting Weinman and administering a breathalyzer test over an unopened alcoholic beverage. Weinman had not been drinking and began to walk away. At that point, a cop announces, "You are about to get dropped." As stated in the lawsuit, Weinman said that the officer grabbed her hair and put a forearm against her neck to harm her breathing. Two Class II officers from the Jersey Shore towns, Thomas Cannon and Robert Jordan, were sued for police misconduct during the busy summer season. Las Cruces, New Mexico. In August 2020, Las Cruces, New Mexico, agreed to pay $6.5 million in a wrongful death suit after a police officer killed an unarmed Mexican man. Antonio Valenzuela, 40 years old and having a warrant for arrest in Las Cruces, New Mexico, reportedly resisted arrest when confronted by officers. Officer Christopher Smelser was involved in the death of Hector Valenzuela, a man who had fled from police on foot. It led to the banning of all chokeholds among Las Cruces police forces, and any officer who violates this policy will be fired. In October 2020, the city of Las Cruces settled a suit brought by Jacob Sanchez, who had been injured due to Isaiah Baker mishandling an attack dog. The city has agreed to pay Mr. Sanchez nearly $325,000 to settle the suit. This is the third lawsuit concerning misconduct against Officer Baker. Santa Fe County, New Mexico. New Mexico has paid 2 police brutality lawsuits to settle them. Ryan Cordova is set to receive $335,000 as part of a settlement for his lawsuit against the county jail after being beaten by a police officer while handcuffed in the holding cell. The police officer was about 30 feet away from Gutman. When Jessica didn't immediately identify herself, they began to run toward her. She explained that she had a disability, and the condition started to worsen, causing seizures during the police encounter. When Ms. Gutman was taken into custody, it took the police over 30 minutes to allow her release so she could receive medical attention. As a result, Ms. Gutman suffered nerve damage and other injuries due to the delay in medical treatment and will be receiving damages of $300,000. Buffalo, New York. Wilson Morales was a 17-year-old paralyzed from the chest down after being shot by a Buffalo police officer during a car chase. This settlement is one of the largest in this city's history. Police officers originally claimed that Morales was trying to back his van into them when he reversed off a curb during the chase and fired on him when he did so. Manlius, New York. Officer Karen Wolonjevich settled a claim alleging sexual harassment for $200,000 with the Manlius Police Department. A former Manlius, NY police officer filed suit against the village of Manlius in November 2016 for gender discrimination. This litigation resulted in a settlement last February that seeks to address harassment and discrimination against female officers. New York, New York. Between 2010 to 2014, New York City spent $601.3 million on police misconduct cases, and in fiscal years 2017 and 2018 has spent nearly $270 million on police misconduct claims. Many of the cases, in this analysis, involved some form of violence, including beatings, shootings, and wrongful imprisonment. The analysis determined that New York City spent $601 million in police misconduct cases from 2010 to 2014. In 2015, the City of New York compensated $5.9 million to the family of Eric Garner, who died on July 14, 2014, after being put in a chokehold by an NYPD officer. Additionally, the Comptroller's Office has revealed that between the fiscal year 2017 and 2018 alone, NYC spent over $270 million resolving misconduct. The analysis of data published by the New York City Law Department details information on civil actions alleging police misconduct. Of those civil lawsuits, over 1,400 were filed against the department in 2019 and have had about $68 million in payouts so far. Johanna Pagan Alomar, a Bronx resident, will receive $1.25 million to settle her lawsuit with the NYPD stemming from a 2018 incident where she lost her left eye. The Pagan Alomar settlement is just one of many multi-million-dollar settlements against the NYPD this year. This year New York City has spent over $68 million in settlements to date and anticipates hundreds of more complaints. Nassau County, New York. Nearly $100 million was spent to settle lawsuits against the Nassau County Police Department over 2006 to 2013. A 2015 analysis revealed that Nassau County spent over $100 million on lawsuit settlements and judgments from 2006 to 2013. The assessment looked at 2,709 individual payments related to incidents of police misconduct.